What can be fixed off the bye and what can't be?
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings, your team every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm back from Hawaii, back in my basement. Also picked up a bit of a chest cold, so apologize if you're going to hear me cough a little bit. But I thought this was interesting. Actually, first, today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, I thought this was an interesting topic because bye week. A lot of people are excited for this bye week in terms of timing after what you saw against Alabama, and I agree. This is a great bye week in terms of timing. Like you just got mollywopped 42-10. I don't care who it is, right? I don't care if it's Bama and they're amazing. A 42-10 game is a 42-10 game. That's a mollywopping. That's a beating. That's a blowout. You need a week to kind of recover from that to some degree. And you also lost quarterback one. Tyler Van Dyke's down. So it is a great time for a bye week. Objectively, you're have some time to look at USC. You're able to sit back and watch them get beaten up a little bit against Michigan. You have time to recharge the batteries. Like it is a really good week. But not everything gets fixed in a bye week. Ultimately, it's just one extra week with the same players and the same coaching staff. And that's where I think sometimes fans are a little over eager or a little over optimistic about what can be done in a week. So I'm going to go through some of the topics that fans have said, yes, let's do these in the bye week. And I'm going to tell you how realistic I think they are. And feel free to disagree or agree. But you're not going to fix everything in a bye week. A saying I use on the show a lot is if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck. Don't call it a dinosaur. Call it a duck. This team is showing you who they are to some degree. A lot of that's not going to change in 1 week. But let's get into it. A better Braden Lock, can that be fixed in a bye week? I think so. I think to some degree, Braden Lock, what we'll see against USC is absolutely going to be a cleaner version of what we saw against Alabama. I think that one is fair. It's not so much fixing Braden Lock. It's giving him 2 weeks of practice with the ones. It's allowing him to, it's allowing Phil Longo to tailor the offense to what works a little bit better for him. Again, it's not going to be wholesale changes. That's kind of the point of this show. You're not going to see wholesale anything. That's off-season stuff, guys. You're not going to come in and drastically change a bunch of stuff during one bye week. You spent the entire offseason putting it in. And if you feel like now you have to rip it all up, that means you failed the offseason. That means you failed originally. And so they're not going to do that because it wouldn't work anyway. But what could they do with Braden Lock? How can Braden Lock be better? It's going to be the reps, right? It's going to be timing. It's going to be confidence. It's going to be, you just know you're the guy. You're not being thrown in the middle of an Alabama game. And USC is not Bama defensively. So I do think there were some self-inflicted issues that Lock had against Alabama. It wasn't all Alabama was full of 5-star guys, but it was also a really good defense in a moment he wasn't fully prepared for. He hadn't been getting the reps. And now this game plan, I think, is going to be more tailored to Braden Lock. So you're going to see a cleaner Braden Lock. I think you're going to see more accurate. I think you're going to see more intermediate drag routes, more intermediate crossers. I think that's where he shines a little bit. Again, not the biggest armed guy, but I think you can operate in that 10 to 20-yard range a lot with Braden Lock. I think he's comfortable there. He showed it a little bit last year. Took some shots against Bama. Now pocket awareness is a big deal. Bama or USC does have pass rushers, so you got to be able to not fumble the ball, protect the ball. As long as he can do those things, I think you're going to see a better version of Braden Lock. So I'm going to say on this one, yeah, I think during the bye week you can fix it to some degree. Don't expect him to come out and be Scott Tolzien, right? Don't expect him to come out and be an upper tier Big Ten quarterback. But if you get solid quarterback play in this USC game, you can win the game. So that's that one. Rotational changes. A lot of fans talking about in the linebacker core, running back core, some of these other areas, we want to see different guys. I think to some degree that can get adjusted in the bye week as well, right? You're going to see, I hope to see Brandon Lane play a little bit more. I think he needs to. I hope to see Tackett Curtis and Christian Allegro play a little bit more. I think over the bye week, that's a great time to go back and then look at the first 3 weeks, look at the film, and just see who's flashing. And quite frankly, Allegro flashes. Tackett Curtis flashes. That's it, right? Like ultimately, get your dogs on the field. Get your ball players on the field. That doesn't mean that it goes from 8 reps a game for Allegro to 50 and Jake Chaney goes to nothing. No. But like it's more of a timeshare. You got to get those playmakers more involved. I think that is something in the bye week you can pretty easily adjust. I don't see it as much in the running back room. And again, I apologize, Matt, if you hear me taking deep breaths, like I feel my lungs are tight. I don't see it as much in the running back room. I just don't. I would like to see Dupree and Jones get more reps, but ultimately Dupree's had 14 carries. He's averaging 3.53 yards per carry. Like he hasn't been that productive in those reps. And he hasn't got a lot of reps, and I get that. But the way you get more reps is to excel in the reps you are given. KD Akimelli's done that. He's earned more reps. I think this staff has shown you who they really like in that rotation. They like Ches, whether I think they like him too much at this point. I think it hasn't been efficient, but they like Ches, they like Tyree, and Cade has been the third guy. I don't know if I see a running back jumping up out of that group. In terms of other players, I know fans have talked about Mabry Mettoyer, fans have talked about some of the other freshmen. It's not a Mabry Mettoyer week. It's not. I think it's a great opportunity for him to start getting reps with the twos and start building up that rapport inside this Phil Longo offense. It is not a Mabry Mettoyer week. First game on the road against USC, who's probably going to be pissed off, by the way. They're probably going to be pissed off about losing that game to Michigan. They're not going to want to start 0-2 in the Big Ten. I think we're going to get into the USC Michigan game in the next segment. So I do think to answer this one, yes, I think rotational changes can be made. I think they will be made. I hope they will be made, but it's also not going to be as wholesale as people think. You're not going to see 5 or 6 different guys out there getting major reps. I think it's an adjustment in the linebacker room, hopefully a bit of an adjustment in the defensive line room, maybe a couple more reps for a Darian Dupree, that kind of thing. I think that's kind of the bulk of it. A different offensive scheme or major philosophy shift. No, that's not changing the bye week. I'm hearing fans and I'm hearing even some people in the media saying, you need to scrap some what you're doing, put in some new looks, put in a bunch of this. You're not going to do that in a bye week. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be tweaks, right? I want to be clear. Like maybe they put in a little bit of a motion package, or maybe they adjust a little bit towards what Braden Lock is going to want to do. I think you're going to see less RPO. Like that's a tweak because Braden Lock's not going to run as well as TVD. And you also don't want him taking extra hits. But you're not going to see a ton of different stuff. You're not going to suddenly start going under center of more. You're not going to suddenly start seeing more power spread concepts. Like you're just not going to change everything you did in the offseason in one bye week. By the way, and everything you did in the offseason is what Braden Lock repped. So if you were to try to change a bunch of stuff and we need to scheme up new ways to get explosives, that's not this, because that would be brand new for Braden Lock this week too. Braden Lock has been repping what Tyler Van Dyke has been repping. So I know there's some thought, and we need to put in maybe some more anchor plays, or get away from maybe some of the receiver read, the option routes. I don't know how much you can change that in 1 week, and I don't think realistically you can. So I don't expect a bunch of offensive scheme changes or defensive scheme changes. I don't think you do that in a week. That's off-season stuff. And if it's not working, then you kind of failed the off-season stuff. Philosophy or toughness. I had a couple people reach out to me and said, they just need to out-tough them, or they need to preach physicality. Again, that's an off-season thing. I'm sorry. You either are a physical, tough-minded team right now, or you aren't. You're not going to, in week 3, change that. That's something that's developed in strength and conditioning. That's something that's developed during the offseason. It's not something that during a bye week, you suddenly start harping on that and say, now we need to out-physical them. If you're hoping for the defense line to suddenly look a lot more physical because they've been challenged, that ain't happening. I'm sorry. That's not how it works. You can motivate people for a couple plays, and then that wears off, and you fall back to your athletic baseline and your technique baseline. The motivational stuff, the yelling, the challenges, it works for a series. It works for a couple plays, and then that kind of wears off, and you are who you are, right? You are the athlete you are the technician you are the person who put in whatever you put in during the offseason. So, and that's not to say I think this team is an on-tough team. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying for people who are talking about we need to create more of a challenge, we need to be more physical. That's not going to change in the middle of the season. I mean, color me wrong if I'm wrong, but I don't think that changes. So in summary, I think you see a better Lock because it's going to be more comfort. The offense is going to be a little more tailored to what he's going to want to do. I think you're going to see some rotational changes. At least I friggin' hope so. I'd be surprised if you didn't. I don't think there's going to be major schematic changes offensively or defensively, and I don't think it's too late to create a new culture in season for the team. All right, we're going to take a quick break, come back, talk about USC Michigan, what we learned from that game, what we can do that Michigan did, and what we can do that Michigan did. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for friends of the show over at FanDuel. FanDuel's been with us for a hot minute. They're one of my longer friends at this point, and a great relationship with the program because they are the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. They're fast, they're easy, they're simple. Great way to spice up your weekends. Right now, with NFL going on, you can get a big return on FanDuel, which is, again, America's #1 sportsbook. When you have a hunch in the middle of the game, check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Guaranteed. That's a guarantee. When you place your first $5 bet, that's FanDuel.com, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, let's get back to this. Like a lot of people, I watched the Michigan USC game. I was in Hawaii, but I was catching it. I was at a Mexican joint, which was incredible. Actually, you know what? It wasn't that great. I'm going to be honest. I like Mexican. It wasn't the greatest Mexican ever. They had really good salsa, though. All right, let's talk Michigan USC. What did Michigan do to them that we can replicate, and what did Michigan do to them that we can't replicate? Let's start at the beginning. Michigan bullied them. Michigan was the bigger, more physical dude on the block, and they pushed him on the ground. They kicked him a little bit, and then USC got up and landed a jab and an uppercut. They got him once to the abdomen, and then Michigan just laid on him again. And if you remember, I did a show where I said like USC is not ready for this level of physicality. Michigan won. They threw for like 32 yards. Okay, they completed 7 passes. Now, here's the difference. Michigan is better equipped to play bully ball with USC than we are. They just are. They have probably an equally adept offensive line. I think our offensive line is relatively on par with theirs, but they have a 230-pound running quarterback. They have better tight end play just because they're a little more veteran units in that group. And then defensively, they are much more physical up front. So as a whole, they are much more able to play bully ball through every facet of the game. We are not quite there yet. Let's talk offensively. Michigan bullied them. Wisconsin can do some of the same. I think if you're a Wisconsin fan, your optimism from watching that Michigan USC game stems from the fact that Michigan just said, we're going to run the ball every single time, basically. And now I thought their run game was innovative. I don't think we have quite as much in ours as theirs. There's a lot of motion. There was counters, power counters, reverses. There's quarterback RPO, quarterback read, quarterback sneak, quarterback sweep. Like, they have a lot of different nuance to the running game, but ultimately it's still a running game. And Michigan just wore them down, just pounded them, and USC didn't have a great answer, despite the fact that there was no passing threat. That bodes well for Wisconsin, because I think Wisconsin, it's not going to look the same. Wisconsin is still going to come out in 11 personnel. They're still going to come out in 12 personnel. They're going to spread the field a little bit more than Michigan did. They're going to make it a little more difficult for USC to fill the box, but ultimately Wisconsin's going to want to run the ball, and I think to some degree they can do that against USC. That's about where I think the comparisons end. Because if you flip it onto the other side, what Michigan was able to do is USC, they were able to rush 4 or 5 and just constantly get pressure, constantly harass Miller Moss, constantly hit Miller Moss, constantly have him backpedaling. And quite frankly, Miller Moss, I thought, played really well. He had the pick 6, but he got hit, I think, 10, 11 times. He was under pressure the entire game, and he just kept getting up, dealing. He had a couple really nice throws, almost led USC to a come from behind victory on the road in the Big House. Like, he's a good quarterback. They have a good offense. They have good receivers, solid running game. But the problem for Wisconsin is we can't replicate what Michigan was able to do. We have to kind of pick our poison. And this is where I think Coach Tressel is in a really tough spot, because our front four can't get to Miller Moss the way Michigan did. They can't. Their front four was awesome. However, we haven't been getting home when we've been blitzing. Like, we have the lowest havoc rate in the Big Ten, which is basically a measure of tackles for loss, sacks. We have a 36% blitz rate in the Big Ten, which is roughly below half. But we do blitz. The problem is we don't get home when we've been blitzing. So what do you do if you're Coach Tressel? If you know your front four hasn't been creating pressure, but you also know the blitz packages you've been scheming up at least through 3 weeks haven't been getting home, do you blitz Miller Moss a bunch and just hope that you've schemed up some exotics, you've seen some things on film, knowing if you don't get home, you're going to give up some chunk plays? Or do you try to play more cloud coverage, shorten the game, make Miller Moss earn it? He probably will, by the way. Like, that's a tough one, man. And I don't know what the right answer is. Like, I think anybody telling you the right answer is just to blitz him all the time, sure, if it works. I think you got so what I would say is I think you have to mix it up. I don't think you can be uber aggressive, because you haven't shown that your blitz packages get home. And quite frankly, our edge rushers, the Piuses and the Lowrys, I don't think they've won as much as we had hoped they would. So I'm not all about playing uber aggressively and leaving our corners on islands where they're going to get gashed. However, you also can't just sit back. So I think it needs to come down to an incredible game plan from Tressel. You have to mix and match. You have to send blitzes. You cannot be overly conservative, but you also can't go like uber aggressive. Like you have to find that sweet spot. And that's a hard one. It's a hard one. The other thing I would take away from that Michigan USC game is USC is good. Like, I don't know if I'm breaking news there. They're not an elite team. They're not Alabama, but they're good, right? They went into the big house. Michigan had a pick six. Michigan, they went into the big house, almost won. They lost by 3, and that's with a pass rush that we don't have. Michigan had a pick six. My bigger point is we can't do everything that Michigan did, and Michigan had their hands full at home against USC. Like this is going to be a tough game. Can Wisconsin win? Absolutely. I don't know if I'm more or less encouraged by what I saw from that game, though. I do think we have a better offense than Michigan. We do have the ability. Wisconsin has the ability to throw the ball. That's going to make it a little more difficult for USC. We're going to put them in conflict a little bit more. There's also several USC players, and I'll be straight up with you. I never am happy with injuries, but that's just like football. That's just what happens. Several USC guys got banged up in that game, right? There's a lot of injuries. The tight end, they had a linebacker. I think they had 2 receivers. Like that was a physical game. So Wisconsin coming off a bye, USC coming off a physical game where they're probably going to be either down or limited at some spots. That bodes well for Wisconsin. But ultimately, that's going to be a tough game, man, because I don't know if you have a great way to stop USC's offense, which means it might have to be a bit of a shootout. I don't know if you beat USC on the road in a shootout because ultimately shootouts a lot of times come down to the quarterback, and it's Miller Moss versus Braden Lock. Who would you take? I mean, I think you're taking Miller Moss, and I don't think that's certainly not a controversial opinion, even though I think Braden Lock will be better. So, bunch more content coming up this week. We're going to have a USC guy on the show, continue breaking it down. I think it's going to be a good game, by the way. Like, this may sound a little doom and gloom. I don't think it's going to be, I think it's going to be a 27-20 game, 31-24. Like, I think it's that type of game where Wisconsin's in it and has a chance to win it. I hope so, because Wisconsin has to show out on a big stage. Like, it's been a minute since they've done that. And that would be a nice feeling just to be in that game. And I think Wisconsin can do it because I don't think USC defensively can hold up in the trenches. And they're going to be coming off a week where they got battered. I also don't think, I want to point this out. I know there's a lot of talk about a letdown. I think, was it Dimitri? I had somebody send me a DM on Twitter. I'll go back and figure out who that was, but they were talking about a letdown for USC. I don't think there's any letdown. Listen, I don't think you lose your first game in conference, then you're hosting your first Big Ten conference game at home against a Wisconsin. You're 0-1 in conference, and you have a letdown. I think that place is going to be amped. It's sold out. They're not going to want to start 0-2 in the Big Ten. They're going to want to show that they're not soft. I think they're going to be freaking fired up. So they will be beaten up a little bit, which is helpful, but I don't think there's a letdown scenario there, unfortunately. I'll take it, though. One more quick break, and we're going to come back with some of your comments and thoughts. Today's episode also brought to you by our incredible friends over at Game Time, an app that I have used, a service that I have literally personally used to get tickets on my way to the stadium. Like, it's that simple, man. Our tickets fell through on the way. Load up Game Time, find the best deals, buy, email to me before we got to the stadium entrance. It was like in 10 minutes, and I got incredible seats. I ate nachos out of oversized baseball hats because of Game Time. Because of the money I saved, I was able to splurge on overpriced nachos and beer. It was incredible. Game Time takes the stress out of buying tickets. Right now, snag the tickets without stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off over at Game Time. They are awesome. You will get the best tickets, the best inventory at the best prices over at Game Time. All right, let's get back into this. Some comments that I just kind of wanted to throw up here. This is from Rick Mueller, who says, I watch a ton of college. Badgers have one of the most inept looking offenses I've watched all year at the D1 level. No one's open. I wanted to put this up there, not to like pile on to anything, nothing like that, but that last part stuck with me. And I read all the comments, guys, and I so much appreciate Rick and everyone else commenting on the show and helping support it. Y'all are incredible. Thank you. His point, no one's open. Yeah, like I want to expand on that. I would expand and say the offense feels so difficult. Everything feels like a slog. Every run feels like, just carrying firewood up grandma's basement steps. It's just a slog. Every pass feels like we're trying to thread the needle to get 7 yards. That's got to change. That's some of the schematic stuff, the tweaks that I think they can do this off the bye week. I think intermediate stuff again, crossers, some of those deeper intermediate routes. I think Locke has the ability to exploit and take advantage of off play action, and that's where I think they got to go. You have to expand the field horizontally. You have to. You've done it vertically a little bit. I would like to see a little bit more motion. I don't know if you're going to see a ton of that, but yes, Rick's right. It's been difficult. It's been forced. It's been hard. No one's open. It just feels difficult. And it's not literally nobody's open. Like there are, if you watch the All-22, there are receivers running open. The point is, a lot of times when they're running open, the quarterback is either under pressure or it's just nothing feels easy. And sometimes part of hitting the open guy is making easy reads for the quarterback as well, making his job easier so he knows where that open guy is going to be. And for whatever reason, those things haven't synced up. So Rick is dead on. Like it's just has felt disjointed and difficult. Downstream said, watching Illinois, Nebraska tonight, we are nowhere near their level of complete play. Yeah, I know that's the popular thing. I'm going to put a little cold water on that. It's early in the season. It's hard to really know because you're comparing teams against each other. And if teams really haven't been challenged all that much, I mean, Nebraska did take down Colorado. Both those teams will look better than we have. No argument there. No argument there. It would be homerish for me to take the other side on that. I would like to give it a couple more weeks. There's a lot of shaking out still being done in college football. I want to see a couple more weeks. I thought Raiola at times looked off against Illinois. Be interesting to see as he starts to ramp up against better defenses. I thought Luke Altmaier looked great for Illinois, but I don't think Nebraska's defense is all that great. So I hear you. I think they both have looked better than us. I'm gonna still hit the pause button on that one, just a little bit. Andrew Mueller says you're in denial. Locke thinks your team is mid and you are not beating USC. Oh man, thanks, Andrew. Maybe I don't think Locke stinks. Like I think Locke hasn't had a ton of opportunities to succeed. I think he can be a solid Big Ten quarterback. I don't think he's going to be an elite one, but I think he can be solid. Your team is mid so far; they have been. You're not beating USC. Okay, USC just lost to a team that threw the ball for 32 yards. Let's not crown USC. Now, Wisconsin is fully capable of going in there and laying an egg and not playing consistent 100%. USC is gettable. They're dead gettable. I almost just swore there. I don't want to swear. Herb said must wins. Purdue, Northwestern, Minnesota. Would think we would like to win. Rutgers, toss-ups, Iowa, Nebraska. Please win one. USC, Penn State. Yeah, I think it's pretty accurate. I think you do got to win Purdue, Northwestern, Minnesota. I think you do beat Rutgers. Toss-ups, Iowa, Nebraska. I think that's all realistic. I would put Iowa below a toss-up. I think it's unlikely we go to Kinnick and beat them. Their ability to run the ball, coupled with our inability to stop the run, yikes. So I would not put that one in a toss-up. I would probably knock that down into please win one of USC, Penn State, Iowa. But other than that, I'm right there with you, Herb, and appreciate the comment, man, as always. This is from Dice Gambling. He said, hey, Ryan, is Wisconsin cursed? First, Jack Cohn breaks his foot senior year, then the whole Mertz getting COVID, constant injuries. Mordecai breaks his hand senior year. TBD tears his ACL. Is Wisconsin cursed? No, Wisconsin doesn't recruit enough depth at quarterback. That's what it is. Although, listen, you're not wrong. Like, that's a string of bad luck. That is a string of bad luck. Like, TBD running to the outside and just having a non-contact ACL injury. Golly, get out of here. Mordecai breaking his hand on a helmet. Yeah. They've had a string of bad luck, but you mitigate bad luck by recruiting more depth. It just is what it is. And I don't, like no one's going to feel sorry for you. They've had a string of bad luck, though. I'm with you there. Jay Freak says, bring Bielema back. I'm serious. No, I'm so, like, first of all, Jay Freak, man, appreciate the comment. And I'm here if anybody wants that. But, like, did people forget how Bielema left us? Like, first of all, I'm all for, like, forgiveness. I'm not mad at Bielema anymore. There's no grudge, but that dude left us in the middle of the night and then kind of, I don't want to say trashed it, but like that was not the most graceful exit. No, we don't need him back. Like if it turns out that Fickle is not the guy, which we are not there yet, in my opinion. But if he is, like, we go find somebody else. And I also think people are getting a little over the top on Bielema here. Illinois didn't have a winning record last year, right? Like, he failed at Arkansas miserably. Illinois has had their best start in a while, but let's see how this season shakes out before we start crowning Brett Bielema. That's my take. And even if he really turns it around and he is the second resurgence of young Brett Bielema that everybody's really high on him, I don't want him back at Wisconsin. I don't. I'm sorry. Spurned us once at the altar, you're done. Like, no. And I don't think he would come back either. I don't. So no, I'm off that one. Appreciate your comment though. Cold Stone says people did not appreciate BA enough. Yeah, I agree. And I was one of those people. 100%. I'll own that receipt. 100% Cold Stone. Yeah, you look at this running back room now. A lot of us thought it would be better because of the depth, because of the young guy. Like, you'd kill for a BA right now, especially going up against USC. That level of physicality. Yeah, I agree there. This is Dimitri saying you have to admit that we are in full rebuild mode. It sucks, but we cannot throw the coaches under the bus until their kids are juniors. So interesting comment here. Two ways I want to go with this. And Dimitri, thank you as always. I don't think we're in full rebuild mode. Full rebuild mode is like when you haven't been to a bowl game in 6 years and you've been winning 1 or 2 games a season. Wisconsin sells pedigree because if they didn't, they wouldn't have hired a Luke Fickell because they wouldn't have been able to land them. So I don't think we're there. However, I would say if you think that is the case, if you truly do believe that this is full rebuild mode, then you have to play the young kids, right? You can't do one and not the other. Because if it's full rebuild mode, then you got to get more reps for Dupree. Because otherwise, here's the deal. Like, and I'm not telling you anything internal, right? I'm just telling you, young players want to play, right? And if you don't play them, they're going to look for greener pastures potentially. So if this is a full rebuild like you think, then there's no excuse not to play the Duprees, the Joneses, the Tackett's, the Allegros, the Lucases. But I don't think it is. I don't think we're there. At least I hope not. Anyway, on Wisconsin, go check out Locked On College Football when you're done here. 24/7 stream of all the biggest college football news anywhere you can find it. I appreciate y'all so much for tuning in. Always do. Thank you for dealing with some of my Hawaii off-scheduled shows and all of that. Thank you. Appreciate you on Wisconsin.